Good morning, friends. We're sitting out here in the shade of the greenhouse for a little bit. We've already been out working in the garden this morning. So I wanted to do a video, kind of go over some of what we did last year, what worked and what did not work. So stick around and we'll go through all that. If you've been waiting for a video to drop, I apologize. I've been getting Mom squared away in her new little house. So it's been taking up quite a bit of our time. But it's time to get back after the garden. We'll start here in the greenhouse. You remember we put this greenhouse together last year out of an old shed that was here on the property. We stripped off all of the plywood siding and all the roofing. We reinforced it and then we turned it into a greenhouse. If you remember, I was a little bit worried about this the plastic film holding up to the Nebraska wind, and we haven't got a single problem with this thing. It's holding up great. We've had some pretty nasty wind. The only hole we got is where Kelly scraped it with the lawnmower outside when she was mowing, but we put some patch tape on that and that's been holding up okay. Our tomatoes are doing real well in here. Kelly up-potted those while I was gone, and she's got some other stuff started in here, some kale and some other herbs and such. But we got to get this swept up after potting. We got a bunch of potting soil in here on the ground. So let's go back out into the garden. All of the roses that we dug out and we potted are all sprouting out, doing really well. I got a couple of these are spoken for. I got to take them to the people that want them. Our trees, our eastern red cedars, they're doing well. Even these two little puny ones on the end that wouldn't even hold their own weight up when we planted them, they've since they still look a little ugly, but they've perked up and now they're standing up on their own. Now this is one of our pluot trees that we got from California that my good friend Matt acquired for us. It kind of died there in California. I don't know if a freeze got to it or what happened, but just in case, I brought it along, and there's some nubs along the trunk here still, and we're hoping that maybe those will start shooting out, because trees can drop their leaves and re-leaf, especially fruit trees. So we still got our hopes up for that one. Our lick tubs that we put together last year work really well. We were quite pleased. I have a whole nother stack of lick tubs. I want to build some more of these because you can't say that they're self-watering, because you do have to put water in the tub through the pipe here, but you don't have to water so often because there's not like holes on the bottom where the water just runs out. There's a little reservoir of water in the bottom that wicks back up through that soil and keeps the soil moist, but not too moist. There's still like an air gap down there where the roots can air prune, so that's why things don't get swamped in here. But real pleased with those. We're going to make a bunch more of these. This is garlic over here. This is some old potatoes out of the root cellar that I threw in there. And then we have some old onions and some garlic that we put in this tub here. Now the deer fence, if you remember the video that we did last year, worked phenomenally. We don't have the pennant flags up here right now because the ones that we purchased were very low quality and they do not last. So we're getting some nicer quality, more expensive ones this year. And we did not get one single deer in this garden last year. We had no deer damage at all. Now we're using these combination cattle panels that have the smaller openings on the bottom, so it's supposed to keep like smaller animals out, like rabbits and such. But one of our rabbits around here has figured out that he can jump up and get through one of these bigger holes. So we may have to come through with something just maybe 2-3 feet up that's a little bit tighter to keep that rascally little bugger out. Now the next thing I'll show you is our tomato cages here. We had a crazy amount of tomatoes last year because we were doing trials. so you can see all of the tomatoes we have. So this year we're going to have a lot less, like I said. So I'm going to stick with the cattle panel option that we had here. I probably won't do the cages, and if I do, I'm not going to put plastic on them. I think we'll be okay with those cages with just the tomatoes in them. It makes it harder to weed when that plastic's on those. You can't see what's down there. But we may not even use these cages down here. Those are nice though to keep if a rabbit does get in here. These little old corn tunnels, they call them, keep the rabbits away from your plants until they get big enough. Now the Nebraska Weave over here worked really well. I was quite pleased with it. It stayed up. We have some serious wind here in Nebraska, and these tomato cages will not stand on their own. Once they get the weight of the tomato plant in them, the wind will just blow them over flat on the ground. So the Nebraska Weave that we did really worked well. What we did is we ran T-posts with every 4 cages. We ran some heavy-duty twine down the middle, and then we went around each one too. And it held these up nice and tight, and we didn't have any problem with these. But these tomato cages here I won't need this year because we're not doing as many tomatoes. We'll be able to get them all into one row easily, probably not even a full row. So I'm going to give these cages to some local gardener that would like to have these. I made these last year, but I won't need these this year. Now let's talk about drip tape. The drip tape, you know, worked flawlessly. It worked really well. It connects really easy, and we had a lot of good luck with the drip tape. However, with the rabbits getting in, I found some few places where they've chewed through the drip tape and basically put a hole in it, which is very easy to repair. You can get just these like little couplers here and just cut the line and put one of those couplers in line, but pretty soon your whole line is full of couplers. So I've noticed that the big main line here, they haven't been chewing through that. So I have 1,000 feet of the heavier line on order, and this stuff will be the hard rigid plastic instead of the tape, and it's got emitters just like this every 12 inches. So we're going to try that this year and see if the rabbits actually chew through that. But other than that, the drip tape worked well. So if you're in an area where you don't have a heavy rabbit population, I think you'll be okay. It's super easy to work with. You can even bury it underground, 6 inches or so, and it still waters just fine. So that's another option too if you want to bury your drip tape. But we do tillage here in the garden, so if we buried it, we'd have to pull it back up or dig it up to be able to till the garden again. So I've got all the tomatoes off of this trellis here, and then I'm going to work on the Nebraska Weave tomato cages here, get those cleaned up. We're going to pull all of the cattle panels out, all the T-posts out, and get this thing ready to mow down. We're going to bring the brush hog in here and mow down all the squash plants, tomato plants, the corn stalks. We're going to mow this real good with that before we bring the tiller in. And we're not going to have as many rows this year as we did last year because we're not going to need as much space with it not being a trial garden. So if you see the posts on the other side, they'll basically be a row between every post. So we'll be down to 6 rows in the garden, full length. So the squash and everything will have plenty of room to spread out. Our cages for our fruit trees have worked very well thus far also, except for the one I had a little hole in that I didn't know about where they got in there and the rabbits girdled that tree. Still haven't dug it up yet. I want to see what it's going to do. But these have worked well to keep the deer and the small animals out from ruining these trees, because the deer will get in here and they'll rub on these small trees and just kind of rub all the bark off of them. If they do it up here higher, they really don't do a lot of damage, but down low on the bark, if they rub that bark off, it's going to kill that tree. So we'll see what happens when they get taller up here above the cages. See if the deer's going to get at those, or if they eat the leaves off, or what they're going to do. Trial and error out here. The wildflowers that we planted out here are coming back up. You can see we got a blue poppy type flower right now. And in the morning you can see it a lot better. They kind of close up in the afternoon. But this was a beautiful blue blanket out here this morning. So looks like we got some other orange looking wildflowers coming up. So we'll be looking forward to more and more of the wildflowers that made it, that reseeded out here, to keep coming back. And hopefully they'll keep spreading. This area here where Kelly puts her sunflowers, when we get the tiller on, we got to till this area up. And a lot of those sunflower seeds will be back in the ground again. It might be a little late because I see some things sprouting already. So I'll have to get Kelly out here and have her take a look and see if she actually wants to till this or go with what has sprouted already, because there's quite a few sprouts in here. Sorry about the wind out here if it's interfering with the microphone. Our mulch pile is finally cooking really good, cooking down with the moisture we've been receiving. We've rolled it a couple times and it's finally heated up and starting to break down. We've started a new pile over here with our grass clippings. So we're going to let this one continue to break down while we feed the other pile from now on. So that'll be some really good mulch for the garden once we get it going. The bees overwintered very well. Our cover box that we made for the hives seemed to work really well, flawlessly. Keeps the snow off the hives, and because it's a dark color, it would warm up sooner in the morning. So on one of these cool nights, we're going to come out here, we're going to take the cover box off to expose the hives again for the summer. But it doesn't seem to be slowing them down. Both colonies are doing fairly well. The one on this side towards closest to me seems to be more active, but there's plenty of activity in both colonies. I'm hoping that they didn't get up in here. There's not a lot of room, but I'm hoping they didn't build comb up underneath this box. I hope they stayed in the main hive boxes. So you remember watching our videos, we put this chicken coop together over the fall and winter and spring, and going full force now. Are you happy with what we built, babe?
Yeah, everything worked out good.
The chickens seem to be utilizing everything now. They're climbing up on their little jungle gym here and utilizing the whole yard. They're getting really big. So this is working out very well. The design that we made with the number of purlins and everything, and the rafters we had up here. Our rafters were on 4-foot spacing, and we alternated 2x4, 2x6, and then we put our purlins on 2-foot spacing all the way across before we laid our wire. Seems to be plenty of support. My buddy Steve, who probably 300 pounds, was up there walking around and didn't have any problems, so it's plenty sturdy. But the chickens are enjoying their new digs out here. We're quite pleased the way everything came out. If you remember this area here, we're going to enclose with some more wire, and this will be kind of a hospital or isolation pen if we bring in new chickens. You don't want to mix them, intermingle with your chickens too quickly. Or if we have a breeding pair, we could also keep in here. And then we're also building a brooder inside the storage area. So far, so good. Now today, we bought a bunch of mulch. Kelly's going to come in and knock this grass down, and she's going to mulch around all her plants. She's planted around here to keep the weeds down. And we're going to get some of those red bricks that we got crazy amounts of, and we're going to make a border out here for the mulch to hold the mulch in. So I'm going to go get the tractor and bring some of those bricks up here for Kelly. Now the cord that we use for the Nebraska Weave is this stuff called, I think it's tough twine, tough tine, something like that. 4,200 feet of it in a box. Just put a hole in the top, you can pull it out. It's very UV stable, the sun didn't eat it up, and it stayed strong all year long and didn't break down. Other twine that I've used, the sun eats it up and it just falls off. Another item that has worked out well for us is this T-post puller. If you're doing any kind of work with T-posts, highly recommend one of these. They are not very expensive, but they are worth their weight in gold. You just put it next to the T-post. You hook it around the front where the nubs are, and the little catch will catch on those nubs. And then you just pull down, and look how easy that T-post comes up. And then when you reach the end of your pull, when you go down, that piece automatically ratchets down by itself, and then the T-post comes all the way up out of the ground. It's also got this little thing here that's handy for those little electric fence posts, the little rods like we used for our deer fence. This little thing here pulls those out really well, or you can hook a chain to it and pull something up with a chain. But much easier than using like a high lift jack or something like that, or trying to wrap chain around it and pull it with the tractor. This thing's highly mobile, works very quickly and very easily. Another thing that we purchased this last year that we highly recommend is this T-post clip system. This isn't the only kind they make, but this is the kind we purchased. And they work with these clips. Let me come up underneath first. They come on and off really easily. And I'm just doing this in the reverse that we did when we put them on. And then these clips are reusable. You can just use these again, put it around the T-post. Goes around like this. It's hard to do with one hand, but you can see what it looks like. It goes like that. You put your little twisty thing in there and bend it down, bend it around, and you're clipped. Works really well. Another thing we got that we join the ends of our cattle panels here, you can see the ends of them coming together, are these Hog Ring Pliers. These little hog rings, they come in a bag of, a bunch of them, a couple hundred or 500 in a bag or a box. You just put them in these special little pliers. They fit in those little slots. And then you can go around here like this and just squeeze, and your cattle panels together on the end. Now these are reusable too. If you get a pair of pliers, just open those back up. You can reuse those again. Then when you get your hog rings off, just put them in your pliers, and to open them back up, you just squeeze your pliers. Just like that. That opens your hog rings back up. If you're not familiar how T-posts work, you want the side of the T-post with the nubs on it the same side that you're applying the wire, whether it be barbed wire or whatever. Because once you tie to the post, these nubs keep whatever you have fastened to it from sliding up and down, and it fastens real nicely. You see that one's underneath that nub, and this one's kind of on top of this other one, so this really can't move at all. And I only have 6 fasteners per panel. I put one on top, one towards the bottom on 3 different stakes, and that holds the panel just fine. You don't need to go crazy with the ties. And then I use 3 hog rings on each end, so only 6 hog rings on each panel. Well, we got quite a ways. We went into town, ran some errands, and so we weren't out here all day, but I got all the chicken cages out. Got them outside the garden over here. We're going to get rid of all these. And then I got all the T-posts pulled. I got all the cattle panels pulled out. All we got left is to stack these T-posts over in the corner with the rest of them. and pull up these small cages down here, and then roll up these two last drip tape, and then we're going to pull the end panels off of the garden down there where Brandy just went by, and then we'll be able to get the brush hog in here, hog this stuff up, and then we'll be rototilling for long. It was fairly wet in here this morning, but had a lot of wind today and a lot of sun. So I think this is pretty much tillable right now, so we may be tilling as early as tomorrow. Kelly was busy all day making a border around the chicken coop for her plants to hold the mulch in. And this isn't her plan A border, but she wanted to do landscape timbers, but they're not available at our farm store right now. And we probably couldn't afford them right now anyway if they were. So you make do with what you got. We have like 6 pallets of these old bricks that, if you remember, there was a grain bin right here, and all those bricks were underneath that grain bin for the foundation. So we got a bunch of these. So Kelly made do with what you had, because that's what you do on the homestead, and that'll hold a good deep layer of mulch in there and keep the weeds down. And she went all the way around the chicken coop. So she was handling them bricks most of the day. Her back probably feels just about like mine by this time. We'll show you this side. Looking good. Good 6-inch deep brick, so we can get 3 or 4 inches of mulch in there real easy, and it'll hold it in. Chickens are enjoying their little dust bath area inside the tire there. Now this thing here I want to show you is a huge asset on the homestead here. It's made by Starbar. It's called a Captivator Fly Trap. And you can see this thing is absolutely full of flies. Works very, very well. They're inexpensive. Kelly hangs them here and there around the homestead. You see one here. You'll see one down there hanging on that shepherd's hook down there on the other side of the coop. These things work amazing. We get lots of flies here because of the rangeland full of cattle around us, and you know, the chickens would bring in some more flies, of course. But I would challenge you to find a fly in that chicken coop. There's not a fly I can see anywhere. And usually they're pretty thick. We'll get them inside the storm doors on the house. But since Kelly's been using these fly traps, it's been absolutely amazing. That one's about ready to change out. They're super easy. All you gotta do when you start it, this one here is fairly new. This one's been switched out. You just put water in them, and the water activates the material that's inside. And you don't want to sit right next to one of these things because they stink pretty bad. But that's what draws the flies in, and they crawl in the top and they cannot figure out how to get out, and they die. And it's been absolutely amazing since we've been using these. Well, even with going to town and running some errands, it was still a busy day on the homestead today. We got a lot done. And this is only the first of a 3-day weekend. So Kelly's pretty tired. You tired today?
No, I'm doing good.
You doing all right? I think she's lying. I think her back is toast.
No, it's mostly my arm.
Her arm hurts. So we're going to wrap it up. Go in and make some dinner. So until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. We love you guys. See you on the next one.